The frozen wind of Varka cut through the thick suits of the human explorers as they trudged across the endless white plains. Ice stretched as far as the eye could see, broken only by jagged cliffs that rose like frozen teeth. Snowflakes whipped around them, sparkling in the dim sunlight, and every step sank slightly into the crusty surface. Despite the cold that could pierce even the heaviest clothing, the team pressed forward. Humans had always been stubborn, always curious, and on this distant world, that determination was their greatest strength. Nora led the small team, her face calm behind the helmet of her suit. She had spent most of her life exploring icy worlds and knew better than anyone that patience could mean the difference between survival and disaster. Beside her walked Tobin, her second in command. Tobin had a habit of humming softly when nervous, though the sound was muffled inside his helmet. He scanned the icy ground with a portable sensor that beeped every time it detected unusual readings. Today, it was beeping more than usual. Nora stopped and gestured for the team to pause. The beeping became faster, almost frantic. She knelt on the ice, brushing the snow aside with gloved hands. Beneath the surface, her eyes caught something strange. A faint shimmer, not of ice, but of something darker. Tobin knelt beside her, adjusting the sensor. "The readings are strong," he said. "It is not natural ice. Something is beneath us." Nora straightened and looked across the white horizon. For years, humans had explored worlds with no signs of life, worlds where survival depended on endurance and clever thinking. They had faced storms, volcanic heat, and choking dust, but there was something different about this. Something ancient. "Let's start digging carefully," Nora said. "Slow and steady. We do not know what is under this ice." The team moved together, using specialized drills and heat cutters to melt through the thick layers of frozen water. Sparks flew as metal met ice, and the smell of warm metal mixed strangely with the cold air. Hours passed, and the sun barely shifted in the pale sky. Slowly, the ice gave way, and they uncovered what appeared to be a solid structure beneath the frozen ground. It was unlike anything the humans had seen. The stone was smooth and dark, almost black, and it emitted a faint hum that resonated in their bones. The edges of the structure were sharp but symmetrical, suggesting intelligence and design. This was not a natural formation. Something, or someone, had built it. Tobin traced his fingers along the surface. "It looks like a doorway," he said. "But it is very old. It could be thousands of years old." Nora nodded. Her heart pounded with excitement and caution. "We proceed carefully. We do not know if it is safe. Prepare the scanners. I want to know what is inside before we enter." The team set up portable scanning devices, which sent waves through the walls and floors of the structure. The readings were strange. The inside of the tomb was filled with chambers, hallways, and what appeared to be storage rooms. But the materials were not like anything humans had encountered. Metals, crystals, and a strange glowing substance lined the walls. The tomb had been built with technology far beyond what any human or known alien species had developed. Nora studied the readings, her brow furrowed. "This could change everything we know," she whispered. "This is not just an old tomb. This is proof that a civilization far older than ours existed here." As the sun slowly sank toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the icy plain, the explorers prepared to enter. They moved carefully, one by one, stepping into the darkness of the tomb. The air inside was cold, but not like the freezing wind outside. It was still and heavy, almost alive, and it carried a faint hum that seemed to vibrate through the explorers' suits. The walls were etched with symbols. Some were sharp and geometric, others curved like flowing water. Tobin scanned them with the translator, but the device struggled. The language was unlike any known code. Some patterns reminded Nora of early human glyphs, but the precision and detail were far beyond what primitive humans could create. "This is incredible," Tobin said softly. "We might be the first humans to see this." ever. They moved deeper into the tomb, their footsteps echoing on the smooth stone floors. The chambers were filled with artifacts, strange devices, and containers that seemed to hum faintly. Some devices had moving parts, rotating slowly as if powered by an unknown energy. Nora reached out to touch one, and her hand tingled from the faint pulse that ran through it. Suddenly, a low vibration shook the chamber. The hum became louder, almost a song of energy. The walls glowed faintly, revealing a path forward. It was as if the tomb itself was aware of their presence. Tobin looked at Nora, eyes wide. "Do you feel that? It is reacting to us." Nora nodded. "Yes. But we proceed. We came here to discover, not to run from fear." As they moved forward, they reached the center of the tomb. There, partially covered by frost, lay a device unlike any other. It pulsed with light, sending waves of warmth through the chamber. Nora knelt beside it, careful not to touch it directly. Tobin examined the controls, which were not buttons or switches but glowing symbols that reacted to proximity and thought. "This is extraordinary," Tobin said. "It is alive somehow. It senses us. It might be a key." The explorers felt a mixture of awe and unease. They had uncovered something far beyond their understanding, something that had survived millennia beneath the ice, waiting for someone to find it. Humans had always thrived where others might fail, driven by curiosity, creativity, and courage. This was a test of their qualities, though they did not yet know it. Nora took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning." The tomb beneath the ice had waited for centuries, and now humanity had crossed its threshold. The adventure had begun, and the secrets it held would challenge everything they thought they knew about the universe. Nora and Tobin stood in the center of the tomb, staring at the strange glowing device. Its light shifted and pulsed like a heartbeat. The walls around them reflected the glow, showing ancient symbols in sharp clarity. The explorers could feel the power of the place. Every breath they took felt heavier, as if the air itself carried the weight of history. Tobin moved closer to the device. "It is unlike anything we have ever seen," he said. "It might be a machine, but it is also alive somehow." Nora nodded, her eyes scanning the surrounding chambers. "Look at the walls. These symbols are not just decoration. They tell a story. I think they were meant to teach or warn whoever found this tomb." The team split to examine different sections. Some rooms contained small, carved figures that resembled humans, but their features were sharper, taller, and more elegant. Others held objects that seemed like tools but were made of materials unknown to the human explorers. Tobin ran a scanner over one object, and the device vibrated slightly, almost like it recognized him. "This technology is old, but it is very advanced," Tobin said. "It could store information, energy, or something we do not understand yet. Humans are curious by nature, and that curiosity may be what keeps us alive in places like this. But we must be careful. One wrong move, and we might trigger something we cannot control." Nora walked to a wall etched with flowing patterns. Some symbols seemed familiar, echoing shapes found in early human writing. She traced her fingers along the carvings. "These shapes, they look like early human glyphs. Could humans have come into contact with this civilization long ago and forgotten it?" Tobin shook his head. "Maybe. Or maybe the civilization that built this tomb was connected to the early humans somehow. They could have influenced us without us knowing." The explorers moved deeper into the tomb. Every step revealed more mysteries. In one chamber, they found a pedestal holding a small, cube-shaped object. Its surface shifted constantly, showing strange images and colors that danced across the stone. When Tobin picked it up, the images changed, forming patterns that resembled star maps. "This is incredible," Tobin said. "It is showing locations, star systems, planets. We could learn so much from this. But it is also a warning. Look at these images. Some worlds are destroyed. Others are safe. It is a guide, but it also teaches consequences. Nora studied the cube. This civilization was far older and far smarter than we are. They knew the dangers of aggression, greed, and careless use of power. They left this behind to teach future generations. Humans may have the same potential to learn and to fail. The hum of the tomb grew louder. The glowing device in the center seemed to pulse faster as if it were aware of their progress. Suddenly, a section of the wall shifted, revealing a hidden hallway. The air that escaped from the opening was colder than the surrounding chambers, but it carried a faint, almost musical sound. "Do you hear that?" Nora asked. "It is calling us forward." Tobin nodded. "Yes. But I do not like it. There is intelligence here, beyond our understanding. We need to stay alert. Humans are good at thinking, solving problems, and adapting. That might be the only reason we can survive this place." They stepped into the hallway. The walls were lined with glowing crystals, casting long, soft shadows. Symbols moved along the walls, as if alive, guiding them forward. The path twisted and turned, leading them to a larger chamber. Inside, they found a giant structure. It resembled a throne or control center, but it was not for a person. The device at the center projected light into the room, showing holographic images of planets, ships, and strange creatures. Nora felt a shiver run down her spine. The tomb was not just a resting place. It was a library, a warning, and a monument to a civilization that had mastered space itself. Tobin approached the projection. "It is interactive. I think it wants us to learn. Humans survive because we can solve problems, think creatively, and work together. That may be why this tomb allows us to enter and explore. It is testing our intelligence and our character." Nora studied the holograms. "We have to remember everything we see. This knowledge could save lives, not just on our planet, but across the galaxy. Humans have always thrived in dangerous environments because we do not give up. That courage and determination, that may be what makes us worthy of this knowledge." They continued to explore. Some rooms were filled with tools and machines, others with delicate containers that vibrated with energy. Nora realized that every object had a purpose, a lesson, or a warning. The civilization that built the tomb had known that knowledge without responsibility could be dangerous. Suddenly, one of the containers opened on its own. A holographic figure appeared. It was humanoid but not human. Its skin seemed made of light, and its eyes glowed softly. The figure moved gracefully and spoke in a language the scanners could barely translate. The words were simple but powerful. "Knowledge is a gift. Responsibility is the test. Only those who show wisdom, courage, and care may claim it. Those who act with greed or fear will face consequences beyond imagination." Nora felt the weight of the words. This is what the tomb is for. It is not just a resting place. It is a teacher. It wants to see if we are ready. Tobin looked around the chamber. "We are humans. We make mistakes, but we also learn. We survive against odds that others cannot. That might be what makes us worthy. Our creativity, our courage, our ability to work together. That is why we are here." The holographic figure gestured to the glowing device at the center of the room. "Proceed with care. Every step is a test. Every decision shapes the path. Learn from the past. Protect the future." Nora and Tobin exchanged a determined glance. They understood that the tomb was far more than a discovery. It was a challenge, a puzzle, and a responsibility. Humans had always faced danger with determination, and now they would face it again in a place older and more powerful than anything they had imagined. As they moved forward, the walls pulsed with light, the symbols shifted, and the air hummed with energy. The tomb beneath the ice held secrets that could change the course of human history. It also held tests that would push them to their limits. Nora took a deep breath. We will learn. We will understand. Humans survive. Humans endure. That is why we are here. Tobin nodded. And that is why we will succeed. The explorers stepped deeper into the tomb. Every step brought new knowledge, new mysteries, and new challenges. Humans had always thrived where others failed. Here, in the heart of the ancient tomb beneath the ice, they would prove it once again. The explorers continued deeper into the tomb, their steps echoing softly through the cold, glowing halls. Every surface shimmered with light from the strange crystals embedded in the walls. The air hummed with energy, as if the building itself was alive. Nora felt a sense of awe and caution. They had never encountered anything like this, and every instinct told her to stay alert. Tobin stopped suddenly. His scanner beeped loudly, showing strong readings coming from a large chamber ahead. Nora, there is something bigger in this room. Something active, he said. His voice carried both excitement and caution. Nora nodded. Let us proceed slowly. We do not know what it is. Humans survive because we think carefully, not because we rush into danger. As they entered the chamber, they saw a massive structure rising from the center. It looked like a statue at first, but its surface was metallic, smooth, and reflective. Lines of glowing energy ran along its body, pulsing in rhythm with the hum of the tomb. The figure was humanoid, tall, and elegant, yet it radiated power far beyond human design. The room shook suddenly, and a low mechanical sound filled the air. The figure's eyes lit up, bright and golden, scanning the humans in the room. Nora and Tobin froze, realizing that the statue was not a statue at all. It was alive, a guardian built by the ancient civilization to protect the tomb and its secrets. Tobin swallowed hard. It is intelligent. It is watching us. The guardian stepped forward, its movements smooth and precise. Its voice was a low hum at first, then it formed words in a language that the translator barely managed to interpret. Who enters the tomb of the forgotten? State your purpose. Nora straightened and spoke calmly. We are humans from Earth. We come in peace. We wish to learn from your civilization and understand your knowledge. The guardian paused, analyzing their words. Its golden eyes moved over them, scanning for intent and behavior. Every human has instincts, but the guardian seemed to evaluate more than instincts. It measured courage, intelligence, and cooperation. Nora realized that this encounter was a test, and humans were being judged not by strength, but by character. Tobin stepped forward carefully. We survive because we work together. We think and plan. We solve problems. That is how humans endure. We hope that is enough for you to see that we are worthy. The guardian extended a hand slowly, and holographic symbols appeared in the air. The symbols formed images of planets, civilizations, and disasters. Some of the images showed intelligent beings fighting over resources, civilizations destroyed by their own greed. Others showed worlds that had survived because they had learned to cooperate and respect knowledge. Nora studied the projections. It is showing us consequences. The mistakes of the past. This is not just a guardian. It is a teacher, guiding those who can understand. The guardian's eyes shifted, glowing brighter. Then it moved to a panel near the center of the room. Lights danced across the floor, forming a path toward a hidden chamber. The guardian stepped aside, silently inviting the humans to follow. Tobin looked at Nora, both understanding the unspoken message. We are allowed to continue, he said quietly. But every step must be careful. Humans survive because we are smart, not just brave. As they followed the path, they entered a smaller chamber filled with strange devices. Some looked like instruments, while others resembled containers holding energy. Every item hummed with life, responding to their presence. Tobin reached out to scan one device, and the readings spiked. The machine was ancient, yet incredibly precise. It is aware of us, Tobin said. Everything here reacts to thought, to action. Humans have always survived because we adapt. That is our advantage. That is why we can explore places like this and succeed where others might fail. Nora nodded. We must remember that. Intelligence and cooperation are our tools. Courage alone is not enough. The Guardian suddenly moved closer, projecting a map of the tomb in mid-air. Symbols highlighted certain rooms, showing areas they could enter safely and others that were restricted. Nora realized that the Guardian was testing them, guiding them only as much as their decisions and actions deserved. The explorers followed the mapped path, entering a room with walls covered in glowing writing. Tobin tried to translate, but the language was partly alien, partly familiar. Some symbols resembled human letters, others were abstract, forming concepts that were hard to describe. Nora traced the symbols with her hand, and as she did, the Guardian stepped closer. Its golden eyes observed her actions. She understood that it was judging not only what they could understand, but also how they approached knowledge. Humans survive because they combine curiosity with respect. That combination had allowed them to endure and thrive for millennia. Suddenly, a hidden mechanism activated. Part of the floor shifted, revealing a staircase leading downward. The Guardian did not stop them, only observed. The air grew colder as they descended. Tobin's scanner beeped, showing rising energy readings. This place is more than a tomb, Tobin whispered. It is a repository of knowledge and power. Humans survive because we seek understanding and face challenges. That may be why we are allowed here. Nora looked around the descending hallway. We are proving ourselves with every step. The Guardian is not our enemy. It is a test, and we are passing by showing intelligence, courage, and care. The staircase led them to a vast underground chamber. At the center was a glowing sphere floating above a pedestal. Light radiated outward, illuminating the walls covered in symbols. The Guardian stood silently nearby, as if waiting for the humans to approach. Nora stepped forward, feeling the energy from the sphere. It was warm but controlled, as if it contained knowledge waiting to be unlocked. Tobin scanned the area, but the readings showed that the energy was linked to the Guardian. It was alive, aware of the human's intentions, and responsive only to careful and intelligent action. This is incredible, Tobin said softly. Everything here reacts to thought and intent. Humans have always thrived because we use our minds and hearts together. That is why we survive, even in places that seem impossible. Nora reached out, her gloved hand hovering above the sphere. The Guardian's eyes glowed brighter, and the sphere pulsed in response. She felt a connection, as if the tomb itself was acknowledging their presence. Humans survive because we adapt, learn, and cooperate. That truth was being tested in real time here. The Guardian finally spoke in a low voice. You show courage, intelligence, and care. You are worthy to learn. Proceed and understand, but remember that knowledge without wisdom brings danger. Protect life, respect balance, and honor the lessons of the past. Nora nodded. We understand. Humans survive because we face challenges, learn from them, and work together. That is how we will honor this place. The Guardian stepped aside completely, allowing them to approach the floating sphere. The light bathed them in warmth and clarity, showing visions of planets, civilizations, and the choices that shaped their history. Every image was a lesson, every glow a warning. Humans had survived countless dangers on countless worlds, and here, in the ancient tomb beneath the ice, they would continue to prove that determination, intelligence, and cooperation were more powerful than any force in the universe. Nora and Tobin stood before the glowing sphere, their eyes wide as it projected visions across the chamber. Colors shifted and shapes formed in mid-air, showing planets, stars, and civilizations. The light from the sphere bathed their faces, reflecting in their eyes the wonder and the weight of what they were seeing. This is more than a tomb, Nora whispered. It is a library, a record of a civilization that was here long before humans arrived. Tobin nodded. And it is trying to teach us something. Look at these images. Some planets are thriving, while others are destroyed. There is a pattern, a lesson hidden in these visions. The sphere projected a world filled with towering cities and glowing machines. The people were humanoid but taller and more refined. They built great fleets of ships and traveled to distant stars. At first, the civilization prospered, and the planets flourished. Then, the images changed. Conflicts broke out, cities were destroyed, and entire planets became barren. Nora felt a shiver. They are showing us the consequences of greed and conflict. They mastered space, but they could not control themselves. Knowledge without wisdom destroyed them. Tobin studied the projections closely. Humans have the same challenge. We can build, explore, and create. But if we act recklessly, we could face the same fate. This tomb is a warning, but also a guide. The sphere shifted to show a new sequence. Humans walking through alien landscapes, working together to survive harsh environments. They learned to cooperate, to share knowledge, and to use technology responsibly. The images emphasized problem-solving, creativity, and courage. Nora realized the meaning. This civilization valued intelligence, teamwork, and foresight. Humans survive because we also have these qualities. Our strength is not just physical. It is our mind, our ability to adapt, and our willingness to work together. Tobin reached out, tracing the holographic images with his gloved hand. They are showing us the future as well. If we learn from their mistakes and act with wisdom, we can thrive. This tomb was built to preserve knowledge and pass it on to those who are ready. The sphere projected a series of glowing symbols, more complex than anything they had seen before. The shapes seemed to form words and concepts, not in language, but as ideas. One symbol represented balance, another represented cooperation, and another represented responsibility. The messages were clear even without translation: knowledge comes with a duty. Nora studied the symbols. They are telling us that we must use what we learn wisely. Humans have survived against impossible odds because we are curious, brave, and intelligent. That is why we are here. We must protect that knowledge and use it to help, not to harm. The holograms shifted again, showing a series of planets connected by streams of light. The streams represented communication, trade, and shared knowledge. Some streams were broken, leading to worlds destroyed by isolation, fear, or selfishness. Others glowed bright, showing civilizations that prospered by learning from each other. Tobin's voice was quiet but firm. Humans have the same potential. We have always survived where others might fail because we work together, we adapt, and we learn. That is why this civilization allowed us to find this tomb. They trusted our species to continue their legacy if we were ready. Nora felt a growing sense of responsibility. We are standing at the beginning of something greater. If we succeed, we could change the future, not just for Earth, but for countless other worlds. Humans have always faced challenges, and we have always found a way. That is our advantage. The sphere projected images of machines that humans could not yet understand. Ships capable of traveling faster than light, energy devices that seemed to defy physics, and tools that could heal planets and restore ecosystems. Each device was a lesson, a challenge, and a gift. Tobin looked at Nora with excitement. These are not just tools. They are lessons. We have to understand them before we can use them. Humans survive because we learn from every challenge, every failure, and every success. That is why we are here. That is why we are capable of this. The Guardian moved closer, its golden eyes observing them. It extended a hand, and new symbols appeared in the air. These symbols showed sequences, puzzles, and tasks. They were instructions for understanding the technology of the tomb. The Guardian did not explain them in words. It expected the humans to figure it out, using intelligence, patience, and teamwork. Nora smiled. This is exactly what humans are good at. We face challenges and solve them. We think, experiment, and adapt. That is how we survive in harsh environments and unknown worlds. The Guardian is testing us, but it is also teaching us. Tobin reached for a floating panel, and it responded immediately. Symbols shifted, forming shapes that made sense when combined with others. He realized that the tomb's technology was responsive to thought and reasoning. Humans survived because we can think creatively and adapt to new situations. That ability was being tested here, in the ancient tomb beneath the ice. The sphere projected one final sequence. A massive galaxy appeared, with civilizations connected by light, sharing knowledge and thriving together. But shadows loomed at the edges, showing worlds destroyed by selfishness, greed, and fear. The message was clear: survival depended on wisdom, cooperation, and responsibility. Nora turned to Tobin. Humans can do this. We have always survived where others failed. We have always faced danger and found a way. That is why this civilization allowed us here. That is why we can learn from them. Tobin nodded. And that is why we must honor this knowledge. We have to use it wisely, to protect life, and to help civilizations thrive, not destroy them. The Guardian stepped back, watching them silently. Its golden eyes reflected trust and expectation. Nora and Tobin understood that this was more than a test. It was a responsibility. Humans survived not just because of strength, but because of intelligence, cooperation, and courage. The explorers spent hours studying the sphere, learning from the visions, and discussing what they saw. Every detail mattered, every symbol had meaning. The tomb was teaching them lessons that would guide humanity for generations. Finally, Nora stepped back and spoke. We understand. Knowledge is not just power. It is responsibility. Humans survive because we face challenges, work together, and learn. That is why we are here. That is why we can honor this civilization and carry their legacy forward. Tobin looked at the glowing sphere, then at the Guardian. We are ready to continue. We are ready to learn more, to face the next challenges, and to prove that humans are worthy of this knowledge. The Guardian's golden eyes brightened, and the tomb seemed to respond. Symbols shifted, walls glowed, and a new path opened. The humans were being guided forward, deeper into the secrets of the tomb. Nora and Tobin exchanged determined glances. They knew that the challenges ahead would be greater, but humans had always faced the impossible. Humans had survived ice, storms, and hostile worlds. Now, in the ancient tomb beneath the ice, they would survive again, proving that courage, intelligence, and cooperation were the greatest strengths of all. The new path led Nora and Tobin deeper into the tomb. The air felt charged with energy, and the walls glowed softly with shifting symbols. The Guardian followed silently, its golden eyes observing every movement. Nora knew that the journey ahead would not be simple. The tomb was designed to test anyone who dared to enter. Humans survived because they could adapt, think, and work together, and that skill would be needed now more than ever. The explorers entered a vast chamber. The floor was covered in glowing tiles, each displaying a different symbol. At the far end, a massive door blocked the way forward. The Guardian stepped back, and a low hum filled the room. Symbols on the walls shifted and pulsed, as if the chamber itself was alive and waiting for them to act. Tobin scanned the floor carefully. These tiles respond to weight and touch. If we step incorrectly, we could trigger a trap. This is a test, and we have to think carefully before moving. Nora studied the symbols. Some resembled early human writing, others were abstract. She noticed patterns forming between tiles and realized that the correct path might be determined by the sequence of symbols. We have to observe, think, and plan, she said. Humans survive because we use our minds. That is what will get us through this room. The first step was slow. Nora placed her foot on a tile with a circular symbol. It lit up softly, and a low chime echoed through the chamber. Tobin followed carefully, stepping only on tiles that matched the pattern she had observed. The floor beneath them hummed with energy, testing their patience and attention to detail. As they progressed, a sudden vibration shook the chamber. Some tiles sank slightly, revealing narrow channels that emitted beams of light. The beams were harmless for now, but they indicated a new layer of challenge. Tobin glanced at Nora. The tomb is testing more than our intelligence. It is testing coordination and observation. Humans survive because we notice details and adapt quickly. That is why we can face challenges like this. Nora nodded and led the way. Each step required careful timing. They observed the beams, the shifting symbols, and the subtle changes in the floor's vibration. Tobin mirrored her actions, moving in sync. Slowly but surely, they reached the far side of the chamber. The massive door ahead began to open, revealing a new passage. The next room was darker, filled with floating cubes of energy. Each cube moved in a pattern, blocking certain paths. One wrong move could push the explorers into a trap or force them to start again. Nora studied the movement carefully, recognizing the rhythm. Tobin's scanner helped identify which cubes were safe to approach. This is like a puzzle, Tobin said. Humans have always survived because we can solve problems and adapt to unknown situations. This is just another challenge, and we can handle it. Nora moved first, stepping carefully between the cubes. Tobin followed, mimicking her path precisely. They had to communicate silently, using hand signals and glances to stay coordinated. Every step was calculated, and every moment demanded focus. They realized that their survival depended not on speed or strength, but on intelligence, teamwork, and observation. Halfway through the room, one of the cubes changed its pattern suddenly. Tobin froze for a moment, analyzing the shift. The tomb is testing flexibility now. Humans survive because we can think on our feet. We must adjust our path without panic. Nora nodded. She shifted her steps, guiding Tobin with subtle movements. The cubes reacted slowly, allowing them to continue safely. Their hearts pounded, but their minds stayed clear. This was the test the tomb had prepared for, a challenge that measured intelligence, patience, and cooperation. After several tense minutes, they reached the end of the cube room. A platform rose from the floor, leading to another chamber. The platform vibrated as it ascended, and glowing symbols appeared along the walls, forming patterns that told a story. The Guardian followed silently, its eyes still observing, ensuring that the humans understood the lesson. The next chamber contained an array of devices, some resembling tools, others glowing with energy. A holographic map appeared above the center device, showing different paths, energy flows, and points of danger. Nora realized that this was another layer of the test, understanding and interpreting the information before acting. These devices are teaching us again, she said. Humans survive because we can analyze, learn, and plan. We have to apply our knowledge carefully. Tobin studied the hologram and pointed to a series of symbols that matched ones they had seen earlier in the tomb. The correct path is here, he said. We must move in sequence and use the devices wisely. Any mistake could reset the test or trigger a trap. They moved carefully, interacting with the devices in the correct order. Each device responded with light, sound, or motion, confirming that they were on the right path. Nora realized that this challenge combined intelligence, observation, and teamwork, testing every quality that humans had relied on for survival. Suddenly, a burst of energy shot from one device, forming a barrier that blocked their progress. The Guardian's eyes glowed brighter. It was not punishing them, but showing that the test was not yet complete. Nora and Tobin studied the device, noticing subtle hints in the symbols. Tobin reached out carefully and adjusted a control according to the pattern. The energy barrier dissipated, and the path forward opened. Nora exhaled. We passed the first real test. Humans survive because we do not give up, we think creatively, and we work together. That is what allowed us to succeed. The final chamber of this level was wide and open, filled with strange machinery and glowing crystals. At the center stood a pedestal holding a small, cube-shaped object similar to the one they had seen before. The Guardian moved closer, projecting a series of symbols in the air. This was the last part of the test, and it would measure understanding and judgment. Nora stepped forward and studied the symbols. They represented energy flow, cooperation, and problem solving. Tobin helped interpret them, combining logic with observation. Together, they activated the pedestal in the correct sequence. The cube lifted into the air, glowing brightly, and a holographic map of the tomb appeared, showing hidden rooms, energy sources, and pathways. The Guardian observed them silently, its golden eyes reflecting approval. Nora and Tobin realized that they had passed the first test, not by brute force, but by using intelligence, patience, and cooperation. Humans survived because they could face challenges with calm minds and teamwork. This is just the beginning, Nora said quietly. The tomb will test us more, but humans have always faced the impossible and succeeded. That is why we are here. That is why we will endure. Tobin nodded. Every challenge is an opportunity to prove that humans survive not because we are the strongest, but because we are clever, adaptable, and brave. That is why we can continue. The Guardian stepped aside, and a new passage opened. Light from the crystals illuminated the path ahead, revealing deeper mysteries and challenges. The first test had been completed, and the humans had proven themselves capable. Now, the tomb awaited the next step in their journey, and the lessons would grow even more profound. Nora and Tobin moved forward together, ready to face the next trials, knowing that humans had survived countless dangers before. In the ancient tomb beneath the ice, they would continue to demonstrate that courage, intelligence, and cooperation were the greatest strengths of all. Nora and Tobin moved forward through the glowing corridor, the hum of the tomb vibrating in their bones. The walls were lined with glowing symbols that shifted as they passed. Every step felt heavier, filled with the weight of centuries and the knowledge of a civilization long gone. The Guardian followed silently, its golden eyes watching, ensuring that they continued to understand the lessons the tomb had prepared. At the end of the corridor, a massive chamber opened before them. The ceiling was high, and the walls curved around them, covered in crystals that emitted soft pulses of light. In the center of the chamber hovered a large sphere, glowing with energy so intense that it lit the room without shadows. Around the sphere were devices, walls of light, and symbols that shifted constantly, forming patterns too complex to fully comprehend at first glance. Tobin stepped closer, scanning the energy. "This is the heart of the tomb," he said. "Every test, every symbol, every challenge we faced led to this place. Humans survive because we face challenges, learn from them, and adapt. That is what brought us here." Nora nodded, her eyes wide with awe. "This is not just knowledge. This is the combined wisdom of an entire civilization. They created this chamber to teach, to preserve, and to see if those who arrived were ready. We have to understand it, or we cannot proceed." The Guardian moved forward, placing a hand near the glowing sphere. Holographic images erupted into the air, showing stars, planets, and spacecraft moving between them. Some worlds were thriving, green and alive with activity. Others were destroyed, blackened and lifeless. The sphere projected data, symbols, and patterns that shifted faster than the human eye could follow. Tobin reached out to touch a floating panel, and it responded immediately. The images slowed, giving them a chance to examine the details. "They recorded everything," he said. "Every planet, every civilization, every decision that shaped life across the stars. Humans survive because we notice details, analyze patterns, and adapt our actions. That ability is our advantage. Nora stepped closer to the sphere, tracing the symbols in the air. As she did, the Guardian projected a sequence of lights onto the floor. It was a test, but this time it was not about speed or observation. It was about understanding, reasoning, and choice. The lights formed patterns that represented energy, motion, and connection. Only by interpreting the patterns correctly could the explorers unlock the next layer of knowledge. This is different from the other tests, Nora said. It is not just about following rules or solving puzzles. It is about understanding. Humans survive because we learn from experience, think critically, and cooperate. That is what will allow us to succeed here. Tobin observed the sequence. Look at the connections, he said. Everything in this chamber is linked. Every action has a reaction. Humans understand cause and effect, even in complex systems. That is why we can solve problems where others might fail. They work together, moving carefully through the patterns, activating panels, and interpreting symbols. The chamber responded to their understanding, the sphere pulsing brighter with each correct sequence. The Guardian observed silently, its golden eyes reflecting the approval of their actions. Hours passed as they deciphered the chamber's complex lessons. Every symbol they understood, every pattern they followed, revealed more of the tomb's secrets. The sphere displayed ancient star maps, designs for ships, and energy devices that humans had never imagined. Yet it was not just a collection of tools. It was a record of thought, philosophy, and careful planning. The tomb had preserved the civilization's mind, and humans had to prove they could comprehend it. Nora realized something important. This civilization did not just survive. They thrived because they planned, cooperated, and respected life. Humans survive because we do the same. Our creativity, courage, and intelligence give us an edge. That is why we can face challenges like this tomb and succeed. Tobin nodded. Other species may be stronger or faster, but humans survive because we adapt. We learn, we think, we cooperate. That is our greatest strength. That is why we are here. The chamber shifted suddenly, and a hidden section opened. Within was a small pedestal, holding an object that resembled the cubes they had seen earlier. This one glowed more brightly, projecting light that formed images across the entire chamber. As they approached, the Guardian projected symbols into the air, showing the steps needed to unlock the knowledge within. This is the culmination, Nora said. The tomb has guided us to this point. Every test, every symbol, every puzzle prepared us for this. Humans survive because we can understand, learn, and act responsibly. That is why we are worthy. They worked together, following the sequences with care. Each step had to be precise, each interpretation thoughtful. The pedestal responded, the cube rising higher into the air as light and holograms filled the chamber. The images showed planets, civilizations, and the consequences of choices made long ago. Some worlds were safe because cooperation and intelligence guided their actions. Others were destroyed by greed, fear, or impatience. Nora turned to Tobin. This is a lesson for humanity. Knowledge alone is not enough. We must act wisely, think critically, and cooperate. That is what will allow us to thrive. Tobin smiled. Humans have always survived because we do not give up. We face impossible odds, solve problems, and work together. That is what gives us the edge over challenges, danger, and uncertainty. The sphere pulsed brighter, and the chamber seemed to hum with approval. The Guardian stepped closer, its eyes reflecting satisfaction. The humans had demonstrated the qualities that the tomb valued: intelligence, courage, creativity, and teamwork. They had proven that they could handle the responsibility of the knowledge stored here. Nora reached out and touched the floating cube. The holographic images shifted, showing new knowledge, designs for ships capable of faster travel, energy systems that could power entire planets, and tools to restore ecosystems. The Guardian observed silently, but its presence was reassuring. Humans survived not because of sheer power, but because of their mind, their courage, and their ability to cooperate. Tobin studied the images carefully. This is incredible. We have access to knowledge that could change the future. But we must remember the lessons. Knowledge without wisdom can destroy. Humans survive because we learn, adapt, and respect life. That is why we are here. The chamber glowed fully now, its energy calm and steady. The Guardian stepped aside, allowing them to study the cube and the holographic displays without interference. Nora realized that the tomb had chosen humanity not by accident, but because humans had the qualities to endure, adapt, and protect what they learned. This is more than discovery, Nora said. This is responsibility. Humans survive not because we are the strongest, but because we think, plan, and work together. That is why we have been allowed to see this. Tobin nodded. Every challenge, every puzzle, every test we faced prepared us for this. Humans survive because we rise to challenges and solve problems. That is our edge. That is why we can continue. The Guardian observed them one final time and then stepped back, leaving them to explore the knowledge in the chamber fully. Nora and Tobin spent hours studying, learning, and discussing what they saw. Every device, every map, every symbol was a lesson in intelligence, cooperation, and responsibility. Finally, Nora turned to Tobin. We understand. Humans survive because we adapt, learn, and work together. That is why we are capable of carrying this knowledge forward. That is why we are ready for the next step in this tomb. Tobin smiled. And that is why we will succeed. Humans survive, and humans endure. That is our edge, and that is what makes us worthy. The chamber glowed softly around them, and the tomb seemed to acknowledge their understanding. Humans had proven that intelligence, courage, and cooperation were the greatest strengths of all. Now, the final stage awaited, and the secrets of the ancient civilization were within reach. Nora and Tobin stood in the heart of the tomb, surrounded by glowing symbols and floating holographic images. The chamber pulsed with energy, and the Guardian observed silently, its golden eyes steady and watchful. Everything they had faced until now had led to this moment. The cube at the center floated above the pedestal, radiating knowledge and power. Every vision it projected spoke of possibility, responsibility, and hope. Tobin studied the star maps and designs for advanced machinery. This knowledge can change humanity forever, he said. Not just for Earth, but for other planets we may help in the future. Humans survive because we adapt, think, and cooperate. That is why we are worthy of this legacy. Nora nodded, her mind racing with the implications. The tomb has tested us, taught us, and guided us here. We have proven ourselves not by strength alone, but by intelligence, patience, and teamwork. Humans survive because we use our minds and hearts together. That is our greatest power. The Guardian stepped closer to the cube. Its hands moved in a sequence that caused the sphere to expand and project images across the chamber. Holograms of planets, civilizations, and technologies filled the space. Some images showed worlds healed and thriving, others showed the consequences of neglect and greed. It was a record of knowledge and a reminder that every decision carries weight. This is the ultimate lesson, Nora said softly. Knowledge is not just information. It is responsibility. Humans survive because we learn from every challenge, and we use that knowledge wisely. That is why we have been allowed to enter this place. Tobin reached for a holographic control panel. The symbols reacted to his touch, displaying instructions for the devices in the chamber. The tomb was interactive, but it required understanding, logic, and cooperation. Every choice they made had to be deliberate. Humans had survived countless dangers by thinking carefully, working together, and using their skills. Now, that same approach was guiding them here. The sphere projected a new vision. A human figure stood among the stars, building colonies, traveling to distant worlds, and sharing knowledge with other civilizations. Light streams connected planets, showing cooperation and growth. Shadows lurked at the edges, representing danger and failure. The message was clear: progress comes to those who act wisely, who plan, and who respect the consequences of their actions. Nora turned to Tobin. This civilization trusted us. They tested us, guided us, and now they are giving us their knowledge. Humans survive because we face challenges, adapt, and think critically. That is why we are worthy of this gift. The Guardian's golden eyes glowed brighter. It extended its hand, and the cube moved closer to Nora and Tobin. Symbols floated around them, forming sequences that unlocked additional information. Plans for energy devices, maps of star systems, and lessons in cooperation and survival appeared. Every detail was a guide, every projection a tool to teach humans how to thrive responsibly. Tobin studied the energy devices. These could power entire planets, restore ecosystems, and help civilizations survive. But we have to use them wisely. Humans survive because we consider the consequences of our actions, and we work together to solve problems. That is the lesson this tomb is giving us. Nora reached out to the cube. As her hand hovered near it, the device pulsed gently, responding to her thought and intention. She realized that the tomb had judged them not by their strength, but by their mind and heart. Humans survive because they learn, cooperate, and act with intelligence and courage. That was why they had been allowed to access this knowledge. The Guardian moved aside, leaving them free to study and interact with the holographic displays. Nora and Tobin explored each projection carefully, discussing the implications and lessons. They saw designs for ships capable of interstellar travel, methods to harness energy sustainably, and ideas for communication and cooperation among distant civilizations. Every discovery reinforced the same principle: knowledge without wisdom is dangerous, but knowledge applied with care and courage can change the universe. This is more than a gift, Nora said. It is a responsibility. Humans survive because we can face impossible challenges, learn, and act wisely. That is what will allow us to carry this civilization's legacy forward. Tobin smiled. And that is what makes us capable of this. We have survived storms, ice worlds, and countless dangers. Humans endure because we adapt, solve problems, and cooperate. That is why we are ready. The sphere projected a final vision. Humanity stood among the stars, working alongside other civilizations to explore, build, and protect life. Streams of light connected planets, and knowledge flowed freely. At the edges, shadows of destruction reminded them that failure was possible, but choice and wisdom could prevent it. Nora felt the weight of responsibility and the thrill of possibility. This is the future waiting for us, she said. Humans survive not by chance, but by courage, intelligence, and cooperation. That is why we can rise to this challenge and use this knowledge for good. The Guardian extended a hand again, this time pressing a sequence that fully unlocked the cube. The chamber filled with light, warmth, and energy. Symbols danced around them, showing pathways to knowledge and technology that humans had never imagined. The tomb acknowledged their understanding and rewarded their perseverance. Nora and Tobin stood in awe. We have been tested, guided, and taught, Tobin said. Now, it is our choice how to use this knowledge. Humans survive because we act wisely, think critically, and cooperate. That is our advantage, and that is why we can succeed. Nora turned to the Guardian. We understand the lessons. We will honor this knowledge, use it responsibly, and protect life wherever we can. Humans survive because we do not give up, and we do not act carelessly. That is why we are worthy of this trust. The Guardian's golden eyes glowed one last time, then it stepped aside completely. Its presence remained, silent but protective, as if assuring them that they were ready. The tomb had completed its purpose, to test, teach, and grant knowledge to those capable of understanding and responsibility. Nora and Tobin spent hours studying the cube and the holographic displays. Every device, map, and symbol contained lessons not only in technology, but in wisdom, cooperation, and foresight. They realized that the civilization that built the tomb had valued intelligence, courage, and teamwork above all else. Humans had survived and thrived because they shared those qualities, and now they had been entrusted with the same legacy. Finally, Nora turned to Tobin. "We have what we need. The tomb has tested us, and we have proven ourselves. Humans survive because we learn, adapt, and work together. That is our greatest strength. Now, it is time to take this knowledge back to Earth and to the stars." Tobin nodded. "Humans endure. Humans rise to challenges. That is why we are worthy. That is why we can continue. The future awaits, and it will be shaped by courage, intelligence, and cooperation." As they prepared to leave the tomb, the Guardian stepped back, its golden eyes watching. The cube's glow dimmed slightly, now resting safely on the pedestal, but the knowledge within it remained accessible. Nora and Tobin felt the weight of responsibility settle on their shoulders, but they also felt hope, determination, and excitement. The explorers emerged from the tomb into the icy sunlight of Varka. The frozen wind bit at their suits, but they felt warmer inside, carrying the knowledge and lessons of an ancient civilization. Humans survive because they adapt, learn, and act with courage and intelligence. That was the lesson, and it was one they would carry across the stars. Nora looked at Tobin. "The future awaits, and we are ready. Humans endure, and humans thrive. That is why we will succeed." Tobin smiled, scanning the horizon. "And that is why the stars belong to those who are brave, clever, and united. Humans survive, and now, we have a new chapter to write." The tomb beneath the ice would remain, silent and patient, waiting for the next explorers. But for now, humanity had proven itself worthy. Knowledge, responsibility, and hope were in their hands. The future awaited, and humanity was ready to rise.